Science gives us so much, it lights up the world. We have medicine because of science. We have phones and planes because of science. We understand the stars, the tiny parts of life, and how our bodies work, all because of science. It pulls back the curtain on the universe. It is a powerful way to know things, but sometimes even the best things can become dangerous, not because of what they are, but because of how we think about them, how we use them, or what we expect from them. The most dangerous idea in science isn't a theory like evolution or a discovery like the atom. Those things in themselves are about understanding. Evolution explains life. The atom helps us understand matter and energy. The danger isn't in knowing more. The real danger comes from a way of thinking, a kind of deep-seated assumption about what science is and what it can do. It is the idea that science is the only path to truth, or the only kind of truth that matters. It's the belief that if something can't be measured, tested, or explained by science, then it isn't real, or it isn't important, or it simply doesn't exist. This way of thinking, this overreach, is the most dangerous idea. It sounds simple, even logical to some, but it cuts deep. Let's be clear about what science really is. Science is a method. It is a specific way of asking questions about the natural world. It starts with observing things. You see something happen, and you wonder why. Then you make a guess, a hypothesis. You say, maybe this happens because of that. After that, you set up a way to test your guess. You design experiments, you collect data, you look at the numbers and the observations very carefully. And then you see if your guess holds up. If it doesn't, you change your guess. If it does, you share your findings, and other scientists try to do the same thing to see if they get the same results. This process is always open to new information. A scientific truth is never the final word, carved in stone forever. It's the best explanation we have right now, based on all the evidence. Tomorrow, new evidence might come along and change everything. That's a strength, not a weakness. It means science is always getting closer to a better understanding, always refining its picture of the world. Science tells us how things work. It describes the universe, it builds models, it doesn't claim to possess absolute unchanging reality itself, but rather a very useful, constantly improving map of it. But the dangerous idea creeps in when we forget these limits, when we forget this humble, provisional nature of science. It happens when we start to think that science isn't just a way to truth, but the only way. It's when we demand that everything, absolutely everything, must fit into a scientific framework to be considered valid. This overreach, this belief that science can or should explain everything, has deep consequences. Think about human experience. We feel love, joy, sorrow. We create art, listen to music, read stories. We have a sense of purpose, or we search for one. Science can tell us about the brain chemistry involved in love. It can show us which parts of the brain light up when we feel sad. It can analyze the physics of sound waves that make up music. It can even explore the evolutionary reasons why we might seek purpose, and all of that is amazing. It helps us understand the mechanisms, but does knowing the brain chemistry of love explain love itself? Does it tell us what it means to love someone, what it feels like, or why it matters? Most people would say no. The scientific description is just one layer. It describes the physical processes. It doesn't touch the subjective experience, the personal meaning, the value we place on it. When the dangerous idea takes hold, it starts to dismiss these other layers. It says, love is just brain chemistry. Bodhi is just a subjective preference for certain patterns that aid survival. Consciousness is just a complex calculation by neurons. This isn't saying these things aren't brain chemistry or calculations. It's saying they are only that, and that only is where the danger lies. It takes away the richness, the depth, the very human parts of being human. It reduces us to mechanisms, to biological machines, no different from complex robots, just made of flesh instead of metal. If we are just machines, then where do dignity, moral worth, and individual agency fit in? This reductionist view can lead to a kind of emptiness, an existential vacuum. If everything is just matter and energy obeying physical laws, then what is the point? If all our feelings and thoughts are just the inevitable output of a biological computer, then where is our free will? Where is meaning? Science, by its very nature, describes what is. It doesn't tell us why we are here or how we should live. It can inform our choices, certainly, by showing us the consequences of our actions, but it cannot dictate our values. If we only accept scientific answers, and science cannot give us answers to meaning and values, then we are left with nothing. This can be deeply unsettling for individuals, leading to a sense of nihilism, a feeling that nothing truly matters. But beyond the individual, this dangerous idea also harms society. It starts to erode the value of other ways of knowing and understanding the world. Philosophy, for example, asks big questions about truth, knowledge, morality, and existence. It has been doing this for thousands of years. Art and literature explore the human condition through stories, images, and emotions. Religion and spiritual traditions offer frameworks for meaning, ethics, and community. Indigenous wisdom often holds deep ecological understanding built over generations of observation and relationship with the land. These are all different lenses through which humanity makes sense of its existence. They ask different kinds of questions than science does, and they provide different kinds of answers, reportedly. But when the dangerous idea holds sway, these other forms of knowledge are often dismissed as unscientific, subjective, superstitious, or irrelevant. They are seen as less valid, less real, less important than what science produces. This is a huge loss. It's like insisting that only the blueprint of a house matters and the experience of living in it, the warmth of the fire, the memories made within its walls, are somehow less real or important. We need all these different ways of knowing to build a full and rich understanding of the world and our place in it. When we devalue them, we become poorer as a society. We lose diverse perspectives, historical wisdom, and a crucial balance in how we approach problems. This narrowing of what counts as truth can also lead to a dangerous kind of moral vacuum or, paradoxically, to attempts to create scientific ethics. If only science provides answers, and science cannot tell us what is good or bad in a fundamental sense, then who decides? This can lead to a dangerous relativism, where all values are seen as equally arbitrary, making it hard to agree on a shared moral foundation for society. Or, on the other hand, it can lead to people trying to derive ethics directly from science, which often ends up being prescriptive in ways that are deeply flawed. History shows us many times when people used scientific arguments to justify terrible things, like eugenics. They believed that by applying scientific principles to human populations, they could improve humanity. But improvement here was defined by specific values, not by science itself. Science could describe traits, but it couldn't say which traits should be promoted or suppressed. Those decisions were, and always are, moral and ethical choices, not purely scientific ones. Another profound danger is the rise of technocracy, or the idea that only scientific experts should make decisions for society. If science is the ultimate arbiter of truth, then it follows that those who understand science best should be in charge. This can lead to ignoring democratic processes, public input, and ethical considerations that fall outside purely technical domains. Complex societal problems like climate change or public health are not just scientific problems. They are also economic, social, political, and ethical problems. Science can tell us about the warming planet or the spread of a virus. It can suggest solutions based on its models, but deciding how to act, what sacrifices to make, who bears the burden, and what kind of future we want to build. These are not scientific questions alone. They require public debate, ethical deliberation, and the consideration of many different values, not just technical efficiency. When we let the dangerous idea rule, we risk letting experts make all the decisions, potentially bypassing the messy but vital process of democratic governance and shared values. This can lead to a less resilient, less democratic, and ultimately less humane society. The history of science itself offers cautionary tales, though often misinterpreted. Take Lysenkoism in the Soviet Union. This was a politically driven scientific theory that rejected Mendelian genetics in favor of an idea that acquired traits could be inherited. It was backed by the state, declared the correct scientific view, and those who disagreed were persecuted. This wasn't science gone wrong in its method. It was a political ideology masquerading as science, claiming absolute truth and suppressing open inquiry. The danger wasn't in scientific discovery, but in the suppression of real science by an authoritarian view that believed it had the final, correct scientific answer and tried to force reality to fit it. Similarly, when we look at the incredible power of technology developed through science, nuclear weapons, advanced AI, genetic engineering, the danger isn't in the knowledge itself. The danger is in the idea that because we can do something, we should do it. It's the idea that our technical prowess grants us ultimate control over nature and even over our own species without fully grasping the ethical implications or the long-term unintended consequences. Science can tell us how to split an atom. It doesn't tell us whether to build a bomb. Science can map the human genome and give us tools to edit it. It doesn't tell us if we should engineer future generations or what traits we should value or what it means to be human if we start down that path. These are profound ethical and philosophical questions that science by itself cannot answer. Paradoxically, the dangerous idea, this overzealous belief in science as the only truth, can even make people vulnerable to pseudoscience. When people are told that science is the sole source of legitimate knowledge, and they then encounter complex scientific debates or uncertainties, they might feel unequipped. If they are looking for simple, definitive answers to everything, and real science often gives them nuanced, provisional, or incomplete answers, they might be drawn to pseudoscience that claims to be scientific but offers simple, absolute truths. Whether it's miracle cures, conspiracy theories dressed up in scientific language, or grand unified theories that explain everything without actual evidence. In chasing absolute certainty, people can fall for things that superficially look scientific but lack the core principles of evidence, peer review, and openness to falsification. It also makes them dismissive of genuine scientific findings if those findings conflict with an established scientific orthodoxy that has become rigid and forgotten its own roots in open inquiry. So, what is the alternative to this dangerous way of thinking? It is a more humble, integrated view of science. It means seeing science for what it is, an incredibly powerful, effective, and indispensable tool for understanding the natural world. But it is a tool, not the only tool. It is one lens through which we view reality, but not the only lens. A healthier approach recognizes that the universe is vast and complex, and human experience is even more so. It embraces the idea that different questions require different approaches. Science can tell us about the mechanisms of the brain, but philosophy helps us understand the nature of consciousness. Science can describe the physical properties of a sunset, but art helps us appreciate its beauty and emotional impact. Science can show us the interconnectedness of ecosystems, but indigenous wisdom might offer a deeper understanding of our ethical relationship to the land. This integrated view means cultivating intellectual humility. It means recognizing that science is always learning, always refining, and never truly finished. It means being open to mystery, to things we don't yet understand, and perhaps to things that science may never be equipped to fully grasp. It means acknowledging the limits of what science can do, especially when it comes to questions of meaning, purpose, and ultimate value. It also means promoting critical thinking about science itself. We need to understand not just what scientific findings are, but how they were arrived at, what methods were used, what assumptions were made, what the limitations of the studies were, and who funded them. We need to be able to distinguish between solid scientific consensus and emerging, unconfirmed hypotheses. We need to understand that even within science, there are debates, disagreements, and evolving understanding. True understanding, a rich and full understanding of the world and our place in it, requires a mosaic of approaches. It requires science to tell us what is and how it works, but it also requires philosophy to ask why. It requires ethics to ask what we should do. It requires art to express what it feels like. And it requires personal experience to bring it all together into a meaningful human life. None of these fully replace the others. They complement each other. They each offer a unique, vital perspective. The greatest danger isn't a specific scientific discovery that might be misused. It's not even science itself, which is a glorious and liberating human endeavor. The most dangerous idea is the rigid, totalizing worldview that elevates science above all other forms of human understanding, claiming for it a monopoly on truth and meaning. It is the belief that if science hasn't weighed in, or can't weigh in, on a matter, then that matter is inherently less important or even non-existent. This narrow view impoverishes us, dehumanizes us, stifles inquiry beyond its own domain, and ultimately undermines the very spirit of open curiosity that makes science so powerful in the first place. Let's appreciate science for what it truly is, an incredible tool for discovery, a relentless pursuit of understanding the observable universe. But let's also remember its boundaries, celebrate its humility, and embrace the vast, diverse landscape of human wisdom that extends far beyond its current grasp. That way, science can continue to light our path without casting shadows over all the other vital ways we make sense of our complex, beautiful, and mysterious world.